This episode of the Irish Dance Podcast is being brought to you by Dunleavy Boyle Bremer Academy, inviting you to the New England Autumn Feis and Grade Exams, September 22nd and 23rd in Boston. This two-day event features grade exams up to grade 12, music competitions, an Irish soda bread bake-off, a second chance prelim competition, a charity dance-off with proceeds to benefit the Fighting Sullivans, a charity dedicated to Claire Sullivan TCRG's battle with cancer, and of course a North American Feis Commission approved championship. This is the 8th annual Feis, featuring a diverse panel of adjudicators, renowned musicians and competitors from all over the Irish dancing world. Dunleavy Boyle Bremer Academy looks forward to seeing you in beautiful New England this September. For more information, please go to southshoreIrishdance.com. My name is Martin Percival, and you are listening to the Irish Dance Podcast, folk dance to phenomenon and beyond. Hi everyone, I'd like to introduce today's guest. You probably will know her better for her integral part of the Irish dance community with her business Camilla Rose. Please welcome Rosey Jackson. Hi Rosey.
Hi Martin, how are you?
I'm great, love. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Well, let's get started straight away. How did you start Irish dance? How did you get involved in Irish dance in the first place?
Well, as a child, both sides of my family are originally from Ireland. On my father's side, we're from Donegal, and on my mum's side, Killarney. I have a house in Donegal now, which I inherited from my parents. And as children, that's where we went on holiday. My dad was the eldest of 10 children, and his two youngest brothers were in a band called Ossian, Contraband and then Ossian, and they were very well known in folk circles in the UK, Ireland and mainland Europe. And we just had a tradition of music and dance, and it was just a natural progression of doing what was in your blood and embracing your culture and trying to keep your culture alive whilst you weren't back in Ireland. So I started about 6, and I went to a school outside Glasgow, and I just loved it.
Yeah, no, that's all fantastic. I have a very similar story. My mum's whole family are musicians, and so when I first started dancing, it was because she wanted me to keep the culture alive because we were in England, you know. So it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So you started at the age of 6, and how was it for you? Did you enjoy competition and all of that?
I did. You know, I danced with the likes of Terry Gillen and Aaron Crosby, and we had so much fun. We would do well. As my teacher was particularly good at teams, and as a soloist, you know, I did reasonably well as well. But I don't remember the winning. I just remember the fun of having to save the coupons on the cereal boxes or on the tea bag boxes so we could get discounted rail travel. And God bless my teacher, Grace McNulty. She would take us, all these little kids, and then when we became teenagers, without a parent, and she just it enriched our lives really, you know, because we got to travel independently and have fun with our friends, and those are lifelong memories, you know, that I'll cherish.
Yeah, there's like a theme going through all of the interviews that I've done for this podcast, and it's about the memories that are created. And it's just it's wonderful. It's and just the life skills it gives you, right? Being an Irish dancer, that's brilliant. So then, what, you know, competition was done. What happened next?
Well, in those, you didn't get, my generation didn't get ferried about in cars. There was one car for each family. So if we wanted to get to dancing, you had to take 2 buses, and you know. And when I was getting to a critical age, as far as my education was concerned, and I wanted to go to university, and I found it very difficult in those days to combine travelling by bus and get my homework done and keeping the grades that I needed to get into what I wanted to study, which was law. So something had to give. And I always remember my dance teacher Grace McNulty saying, why do I have to get all the clever kids? Because we all sort of gave up around about the same time because she couldn't get a senior team or anything. And, God love her. And, she still to this day comes up to me when I do a local competition. And, we just chew over the fat and reminisce and have a good old laugh at that,
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So then you went on to study law at university.
Yes.
And how was that?
Mm-hmm. I went really young. I was 16 when I went, and that was just the way my birthday fell. I had planned to go back to school for another year, but I had got the results, and I always remember it was my head teacher of guidance, said, you're wasting your time, and said, go into my room, I always remember, phone the law school and, see if there's an extra place. And I thought it was a long shot, and I did, because I was going to defer my entry to the next year. But I got in, and I loved it. I loved it from the moment I started, and I left. I did honours. Then we had to they introduced a diploma year. I did that, and then started my probationary year. And in the second year, you're allowed free in the court. So that was the start of a new chapter. Then that was fun. Yeah, fun.
So a really different world from the Irish dance scene, right?
Oh, night and day. If someone had told me, even 12 years ago now, really, that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I wouldn't have believed them. It's just funny where your life takes you.
It is. But and what I find incredibly fascinating is that once we're involved in Irish dance, we can't. It's really difficult to get away from it, right? And we don't want to, which is the wonderful thing about it. I just, as much as I tried to, take a break from it and all and everything, it keeps calling to the blood. So whatever way you're involved in it, right? So
yeah, for sure.
The whole. Did you practice as a lawyer?
Oh yeah, I practiced as a lawyer for 20 years before I gave up. My initial expertise was in criminal law, and I loved that. I remember being out of university 2 weeks, and I was in the mortuary, and I wasn't being a Catholic and a female. Back then, that was the mid-80s, you were limited what law practices you could actually apply for.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, yeah. When I look back now, I you forget that. But yeah, I was limited. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was qualified to go into all the big sort of corporate firms, and they paid lip service because of my qualifications and interviewed me, but I knew and they knew we were both wasting each other's time. So really, I was limited to apply for Shaughnessy, Quigley and McCall, Quinn, Martin and Langan, and Doonan, Morris and Neil. And it was the last company, a guy called Steve Doonan, who said he was going against his better judgment, but he would give me a job. But he wouldn't give me any break because I was a female, and he certainly did not.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, looking back, if my own children had to experience what I experienced, I would be horrified. But that's what was expected. They gave you an opportunity, and you had to prove you were up for the challenge, equal to any man, if not more. Yep. It was.
My goodness. Well, I mean, in one way, at least there's a silver lining from all of that. At least we've moved on from that crap,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, so criminal law, and then what else did you get to see? I find it fascinating, like the whole law situation. I studied law at A level, and I found it really fascinating. I did some with my degree, I did accountancy, law and management, and I really enjoyed it. To a point, do you know what I mean? And so I have huge admiration for anybody that can take it and run with it. So, what was your law career like?
It was fascinating. The crime part, prison visits weekly. We did my boss who trained me, and I'm eternally grateful for the training that I received. He had a fabulous mind, and he really was. To this day, I will always thank him. But he got all the really heavy duty criminals came to us. There was a couple of firms in Glasgow that would attract that type of clientele, if you like, and we were one of them. And he was he was just amazing. And, I remember we had, there's a big, a guy who's now passed away, but a big crime family in Glasgow. My first week out, I was describing the High Court in Glasgow for this gang lord's son. We were acting for his co-accused, and it was really, really heavy duty stuff. And I always remember that I was scribing for a very famous lawyer in Glasgow called Lawrence Dowdall's, his son, and he was the advocate. I was the solicitor, attorney, if you want to call it, instructing, and he was the only advocate to have dispensation from wearing a wig in court because he had this skin condition. So I not only was sort of in awe of this grandiose building, which is now closed, that was the High Court, and in awe of this man that, fabulous as he was, he kept flicking his dandruff all over me, and I was like horrified that, it was it's the memories that you have to, but it was fascinating. It was really, really fascinating, and I loved it. What then happened was I got married quite young, and I had my children, and when I had my kids, I found that, I was maybe 7 or 8 years into the law at that time, and I thought that it wasn't giving me, as a lawyer, the way I was expected to work anyway, it was all work. Trying to have a work-life balance was very difficult, and bring up 2 kids, and I was expected to travel, maybe to the north of Scotland to a court case, or, down to the borders and be home. And my ex-husband was in the oil industry, so he wasn't home that often. So something had to give. So at that time, I decided, another passion of mine and had been at university was child law, and I joined a government department called the Reporter to the Children's Panel. And I loved that, absolutely loved it. And it's because of my expertise in the crime, criminal law, I should say. I actually I got a lot of responsibility, and I got a lot of very, very challenging cases of child protection, very harrowing cases. And that was something that I took, obviously professionally you take all your work seriously, but that was something that you had to just go above and beyond, because your performance in the day determined the quality of life for that child thereafter, so that was wonderful, and I loved that. Then when my children got up and went to school, I decided I needed a bit more of a challenge again, and I started my own law practice with 2 other colleagues, and that was local, and it was great. And I did a lot of young kids that I had looked after legally in care became my clients because they were vulnerable women and that kind of thing, and I found that really satisfying. I did a lot of independent court reporting because I was getting to that stage of my career. I was considering becoming a sheriff or applying to be a sheriff, so I had to, which is a judge, right? So I had to be like the eyes and ears of the judge in like acrimonious divorce cases or child abuse cases or vulnerable adults in the community, that kind of thing. And that's what then led to a situation in December 2004, which changed my life. I was asked by one of the sheriffs to visit a detention centre. I'd never been anywhere like this. I never knew, and I was ashamed, and I'm still ashamed to admit that this place was almost on my doorstep, and I didn't even know of its existence. And it's where they detained failed asylum seekers. And the law in Scotland and England at that time was different in that children were not allowed to be detained in these establishments. And the law in Scotland is fast-tracked for children. There has to be 7-day reviews. So basically, I went up and met this young woman who had been a child soldier in Rwanda. And her situation was horrendous. She had been smuggled here under false pretences, kept prisoner in a house, and she was attacked basically, and as a result of that gave birth to this little baby. And we basically, I didn't do, in fairness, Martin, I didn't do anything special. I just did my job. But the staff at the detention centre thought what I had done was above and beyond. And I remember going back to my office in January 2005, and in those days, it was the old fax machine, and the fax machine was it was piled high with papers, and it was written in English, but it was signed with a little X or initials, and it was staff members writing on behalf of detainees there looking for help from me. And that really that really got to me big time. And I didn't know anything about that area of law. I knew nothing, and not even enough to fill a postage stamp. But it was the fastest learning curve of my life. And a man called Alan Melvin Farr, again, another man that will stay in my mind and I'll be eternally grateful to. He was a barrister, and he mentored me and in his own time trained me up, and I got a lot of those people out, thank God. Some of them had been in there for 3 years, without even a hearing. It was just shocking. And it was life-changing, and I became, at that time, very, very disillusioned with the British government.
Yeah, of course.
And the rationale in allowing certain people from certain countries to stay without vetting or assessing, and yet other people who in my professional assessment, had horrendously compelling, human rights cases, were sent back without. Some had paid for appeals to the High Court in London, and they would send them on a secret flight back. Another man again he's an infamous character, if you like, in the Houses of, or was then in the Houses of Commons, was a guy called George Galloway. And love him or loathe him, my PA and my trainee lawyer and my assistant, we went through the whole directory of members of the House of Parliament looking for help for some of these clients. And he was the only one out of everyone that offered to help, and he gave us his PA Yasmin's phone number, and we could call her around the clock.
Wow.
So they can say what they like, but for me, the man's got a heart, he's got a conscience, and he was the only one who would stick his neck out and cared for these people, and we'd quite a lot of run-ins with the government. And it got to the point where I just felt I was becoming very disillusioned, and I felt before in my career, that had been quite a lengthy career in the law. I had always been able to assess the case, damage limitation for clients, advise them accordingly. But I felt I was out of my depth. And I knew the law at this stage, but you could not second guess what the Home Office were going to do. If you were making progress with the case, they transferred them back down to England so that you couldn't proceed up here. So we got wise to that. And we started to do the paperwork for them, so they had a little file just to take with them.
Yeah, wow. So, that's just, that whole thing, it just blows my mind listening to it. It's just amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure you've helped hundreds of people, and that's just, it blows my mind. It's just well done, and thank you for doing all of that. I just, it's heartbreaking, especially with the political climate in America at the moment. It just goes to show not a lot changes really. Oh God, it's heartbreaking. So I'm sure you couldn't do that for too long though, like without it burning you out. I got to the stage where there was one client in particular, a Chinese gentleman, and he actually, the first night I went to do this type of work, it was two Chinese gentlemen that I was met by, and one of them, he's still in the UK, and ironically, the week before he was detained, he had been the head chef at a banquet cooking for Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, right. So and they detained him. But we got him out, we got his situation rectified. But the other gentleman, no matter how I tried, and my team tried, and Mr. Alan Melvin Farr tried, we just could not catch a break with this guy. And eventually they sent him back down south. It was on St. Patrick's night. I was packing to go to my house in Donegal, and I got the call from the detention centre saying they were going to move him. And I had his case papers ready, so I sped up there and gave him the case papers so that he had them. And we kept in touch, and then we lodged an appeal through his family, or an uncle down in London, to the High Court in London, for which he paid himself. And the British government, notwithstanding the outstanding appeal, put him on a secret flight chartered from Air Portugal, and put him and 44 other failed Chinese asylum seekers sent them back to China. Our 36-page appeal was responded to whilst he was back languishing in a jail in China by a meagre half-page response, So it was just... So at that point, you can imagine
imagine the level of my disillusionment.
Yeah.
It was off the scale. So I decided enough was enough. Yeah.
That is heartbreaking. Yeah. Absolutely heartbreaking. Oh, I mean, to fight against those odds all the time, to have to keep battling that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, that's harrowing. I don't know how you how you manage that at all. It takes a special type of person. So, oh goodness. Oh. No, it really does. No, it really does. So, so what did you decide to do after that then?
I still was practicing, and I was still doing that type of law, but I knew the time had come that I had to consider other options. My 2 daughters danced at the time, and both of them were really good. The wee youngest one just took it like a duck to water, and she was winning everything, and she was going through the grades and we couldn't keep up. And I think 9 months from dancing, she won the Scottish qualifying, then she was 3rd in British Nationals, 3rd in Great Britain, and she was just like, she loved it. She breathed it she used to put the clock forward or back in the kitchen so that I would leave early, for dance class, because she didn't want to be late. And I didn't find that out till years later. I always remember first British Nationals, she had me up at 4:30, wanted me to warm her up. And I think people thought that I was one of these, I don't blame them, they thought I was one of these pushy mums. But, I think once they got to know how, they realised I had the pushy daughter. She was, to this day, whatever she does, she's just such a motivated individual. And it was actually... a girl actually who dances in Riverdance, I believe. Now, her grandmother used to sell in our dance class like wigs and pomps and socks. And I think it was to help fund our granddaughter's sort of wee fresh fund, for costumes and things. Right. And I placed an order for a wig for my daughter Katie, and this lady phoned me back, and I think she purchased, I know she purchased from another wig vendor at that time, and for whatever reason this person wasn't in a position to supply her anymore, and she phoned up to apologise. And I think if you imagine what I've just told you about the kind of my typical day, right? At the office, right. People getting sick. Okay, so this woman was, I think, quite fearful upset to phone me, and she was apologising profusely. And I said,
it's not a big deal.
Much worse things. It's not a big deal, really, And she's like, and she said, I wish I was younger and knew someone in China. This is what she said, and I said, why China? I'd never thought about it. She said, that's what it's all made. Well, of course, everything's made in China, or was then. And I don't know, this light bulb moment, Tom and Jerry light bulb moment just came upon me. And I had an idea, because I knew he was still in, the client I'm talking about, I knew he was still in prison. I knew his parents were still in prison. They had been in prison before he was sent here for his own protection, after the massacre of the students in Tiananmen Square. So I was thinking, I can go, because what happened was, because they had treated him unfairly, to say the least, and had sent him on a secret flight, his paperwork hadn't followed him properly. So when he arrived in China, along with the other ones, he was treated, he arrived in a place called Fujian, and a lot of people from that region are the ones that they're like the Irish, they go for work, all over the world, and then they go back home and have made a bit of money. And there's a prison there, and it's basically for failed asylum seekers. So he was treated as his paperwork suggested that he was a failed economic migrant, which in fact he wasn't, but that was, thank God, a blessing. Yeah. So for £2,000 you can get someone out of prison. So we sent money across, and we managed to get to a distant family friend, I think it was, who paid the prison money. But I had to go and sign paperwork, etc. So what happened was, when I heard this woman saying, I wish I was younger and knew someone in China, I knew that as a human rights lawyer, I would never get a visa at that time in China. Right. So I contacted wig factories, and I said I was an entrepreneur looking to purchase products, and could they provide me with a letter of invitation that I could submit to the Chinese embassy to get a business visa. And they did. So at that time, I met up with this particular gentleman, and we'd become very, very close and very friendly. And basically, before I would leave China, I had said to him, my impression of China at that time was that they would interrogate me on departure. Did I satisfy the terms of the visa? Had I been to these factories?
Right.
So I said to him, I ain't leaving until I go to these factories and at least, buy some samples or do something. But not a notion, Martin, ever of selling the stuff.
Right.
Never, because at that time I'd actually started to fill in an application for a sheriff, to be a temporary sheriff.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a notion. And I remember, so clearly that we went to these factories and I thought, that's really, really nice. And then there was accessory shops and things. I bought kids' clothes. The kids' clothes there are to die for. So I brought loads of stuff back. And being an Irish dancer, my little Katie's friends were up here more often than not, or they were at another kid's house each weekend. So we always had dancing kids here, and they were looking at the stuff, and the mums were looking at the stuff, and everybody's like, "This is really great stuff. I really like it." And I was putting some of the accessories in Katie, and I just, the feedback I was getting was really, really good. So I thought, I could give this a chance, So I kept my law practice going for another, I think, 9 to 10 months, and I started to build Camellia Rose. And Camellia is the Chinese rose. So I wanted to give an acknowledgement to China without it sounding like an emporium, like a Chinese emporium or something like that. So that's how it came about. And the rest is history. And the particular gentleman we're talking about is still my business partner to this day.
Oh, that's fantastic. Goosebumps. Yeah. Absolute goosebumps. Oh my! So, I'm almost speechless. It's such a powerful story. I feel like that was kind of divine intervention at some point, Yeah,
I think there's a point in your life. My father used to always say that, that your life's mapped out. You've a preordained entry and exit date, and what happens is all mapped out, And I used to say, you've got free will. Of course you have, but I do think there's certain instance in your life that you couldn't write it, you couldn't predict it, and you don't see it coming, but it changes your life for good or bad forever.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And then, of course, you've been involved. So how long has the company been around now? Well,
I started to kind of tinker, still as a lawyer. That would have been in, I think, 2006.
Yeah.
Properly set up about 2007. Yeah.
Wow. So 11 years on the scene, and now it's just been exploded. I mean, it's everywhere,
it's been wonderful.
Right?
Yeah. But my dad was a very wise man, and he always said, if you want to be successful in life, you have to build on the success of other people.
Yeah.
And I look on it like, I love doing it, Martin. I just love doing it. And I love the people and the friends that I've made worldwide. And I love the kids. And I love seeing a wee confidence grow when you put on that wee wig or even a wee hair accessory or just building them up, I just love every aspect of it. And we have a team worldwide that I think just embrace that, and I'm just so proud that they're all part of my team, because my mum helped me build the business, Martin, and I lost my mum a couple of years ago now, and she was all for the kids, and we don't care to this day if you're a beginner or a world champion. Every child gets treated the same at our booth, and we just want those children to feel the most as special as they possibly can, because that then enables them to go up there. If they feel good, they'll dance to their potential, and that's so important, And I think everybody in the team, I mean, we're in Australia now, we're in New Zealand, America. Obviously, we've got a lot of people in America supporting the brand, England, Ireland, Scotland, mainland Europe. And we've tried South America, but Mexico's tricky getting stuff in and out. But it's just, I think everybody that's involved, but if, for example, if there's any sort of Scottish or Irish kids travel, and we had a Scottish kid recently went over to the EIO in Australia, and came back, and she'd been to Nan's as well, and her and her mother came back and said, "Oh, your team worldwide are just so sweet, they're so kind and so helpful," and that's what you need, you really need that.
But that's the thing. So I'm sorry about the loss of your mother, but she has left a legacy, right?
Oh, she has. Because she has, and it was all about the kids.
Yeah, and that because, well, you can tell, and there's something about just about being an entrepreneur, right? So the definition is that you solve a problem for money, basically, is what entrepreneurs do. But it's important that we do it with a sense of authenticity, a sense of compassion, and customer service is your customer service in your company is second to none. And
thank you.
That's why you're successful, is because people can trust, and they know that you will deliver, and you always have. So I'm so proud of everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you, Martin. That's really kind. I think in life, if you lose your integrity, you've lost everything, And I think you just have to always just, if you do good, and if you can't do good, do nothing. Just you've got to make. We're here for such a short space of time, so let's try and make a difference.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And I know that the Irish dance world is different because of you and because of your company and because of the worldwide company. No, absolutely, it really is. So, and it's just an amazing way for you to still be involved in the world of Irish dance, right? Because, like you said, you make so many friends over the years.
Oh, I've got wonderful friends, and for me as well, what's really gratifying is like my eldest daughter, she danced and she was a wonderful dancer, but she wouldn't have had the same confidence as my wee young Katie. My eldest daughter Anna, when she's really two very clever. I don't care about the clever part as long as they're not lazy. I can't do lazy, but they're really hard-working girls, and both of them have come out of university, both with first-class honours.
Oh, fantastic!
And Anna's her boyfriend, his dad is from Belfast, but his mother's from Thailand. So when they graduated, they went travelling for 2 years all over the Far East and then worked in Australia. She came back and worked with me for a year, and then both of them get itchy feet, and she went off to South and Central America. She's now back, so she is in the business, and she's quality controlling, doing logistics, just really... She's like the organisation, and she's got such a logical brain. And then Katie just graduated. She was top of her year. She's won a prestigious... I'm boasting here, Martin, but I'm allowed to.
No, of course you are, yeah.
She was first in the year. She got she's won a prestigious internship with Gant in London, but she wants to work... She will go and do that, but she wants to work with me, and she's the one behind all the social media and all the sort of cool concepts that we have, like the selfie station and the artistic side of it. So
it's a true family business. I love that.
It is, and my mum would be delighted.
Yes,
my mum
would.
That would just So it's just like it's working out really lovely.
Oh, that's fantastic! And so that means that the next generation is still going to keep going. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. So then, let's talk a little bit about we have in the Irish dance world kind of a negative connotation with the wigs and the tanning and the makeup and everything. Do you want to speak to that? Because I do understand that where you're coming from, that you want to give the children as much confidence as possible, make them feel as if they can, win the world, even if they're a beginner dancer. And that is hugely important. And I know the teachers appreciate all of that. But, we get some negative press from outside of the and within the organisation as well. I mean, so do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think it has to be seen in the correct context. It is an art form. Yes, it's a cultural thing first and foremost, and that can never be forgotten. But, a ballerina doesn't go up on stage with her hair hanging down or without makeup on or without her tutu or her tights. And I just think it's the overall look. And if these kids are going to train, and they are athletes, and they train and they work so hard, then they have to present themselves the best possible way, And I remember distinctly, one of the reasons I wanted to grow my business, I know other people who set up business at the same time as me in the UK thought I was mad when I decided that I wanted to go overseas to grow the brand. I didn't do that initially, Martin, for money. And I didn't appreciate the extent of the American market or the Canadian market. The reason that I motivated me was that I took Katie to nationals when she was a young dancer. But before that, I remember trying to get a week off work when you're an attorney or a lawyer was very hard. But I remember working round the clock to get a week off, and my eldest daughter was a sub for the Cayley team, and we went. This would have been when the Worlds were at the waterfront in Belfast. So you're probably talking, I can't say exactly, but you're talking at least 12 years ago, if not more, maybe 13 years ago. And I remember, because I did dance, and we were at the front of the queue, we were down front, and the first competition, it was the year Clodagh Roper won her first Worlds. I always remember that. And I remember the kids being sick on stage and what have you. And I sat and I watched that competition, and I remember watching them come out and do their heavy round, and I was blown away. And then I remember watching the light round, and I don't mind saying it, I was a bit disappointed, because when we danced, we were up in our tippy toes, you know, and I thought everybody was dancing down in the balls of their feet, and they were quite flat. But that aside, what struck me was there was 2 kids from the States that I thought were phenomenal dancers that stood out a mile. They got missed, they had no talent.
Wrong look.
They had an old dress. The dress was, and I remember thinking, well, you shouldn't be looking at. You should be able to, you know, if you're sitting in that chair, you should be able to look at how the kid dances. But you think about it, if you've got all those kids, you've only got such a short space of time to make an impression. It's so subjective. They're human beings, you know. You have to get someone's attention, and how do you do that? You have to look the part. And I think it's theatre, and if you're going to go up there and do it, then go up there and do it and look the best you possibly can.
Yeah, so you want to help people, like, create a level playing field for the talent to shine.
Yeah, that was my motivation, you know.
No, that's fantastic.
I mean, if people want to do away with wigs, then fine. But if you're going to do away with wigs, then you'd have to do away with the costumes. You'd have to, because otherwise it's going to look...
It looks daft.
It needs a balance.
Yeah, it needs a balance, yeah.
So if you strip it back, you strip it all back. That's how I see it, you know. And if that's the way people decide to go, then that's the prerogative, you know.
Yeah, but, and of course, as a business person, you will diversify and you'll be fine.
Well, we're doing that anyway, because the girls are in the business. We're really keen to... get into, still within Irish dancing, but maybe get into other dance genres with activewear and stuff like that. So great. We are looking to do that. But our first love will always be Irish dancing, you know, because we love it, you know.
Yeah, I know, like we said earlier, you know, it's just once it's in the blood, that's it. You can't get rid of it.
It's there.
No, it is, and it's wonderful. Well, you know, I just, you know, as whatever people say about the wigs, and I totally agree with you. It is an art form. So you need to present yourself properly. And I used to say, when I did workshops and stuff, that if you didn't come on, if you don't put your best foot forward in terms of your appearance, then it's like you say to the judge that you don't care about what you're doing. And whether people agree with that or disagree with that, it's just the way it is, you know. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I like having a fair playing field so that the talent can shine through. Mm-hmm. But I think, when we talk about, I've had a lot of conversations around us as a community, creating the narrative, because we, at the moment, I feel like we allow people from outside the world of Irish dance to tell us what isn't right with what we're doing. And so I think the more we have conversations like this, and so that we can all understand why it is that we are doing what we're doing, then, you know, we can tell the rest of the world that they can take it and shove it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So, but I think we need to have more media and that kind of thing. But I don't know how you feel about the competition world and how we're represented. Do you think we need more accessibility? Yeah,
more PR, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. So, at being a dancer and being involved in providing accessories and wigs and costuming and stuff like that, is there anything that you see in the Irish dance world that you would, you know, let's say you were Queen of Irish dance for the day, what would you change? What would you keep and what would you change?
In fashion or in the culture as a whole? With regards to the look or with regards to the whole Irish dance community, what would I change?
Let's do both. Let's talk about the fashion first and then as a whole afterwards.
I actually really like, personally, I like the way it's evolving. I really do. I'll be honest with you, the choreography is so removed from what I danced, and I think it's beautiful, but quite staccato in style rather than flowing. But I do love the looks, I think maybe there's more scope for kids having an individual look as opposed to most of them looking similar, especially as they get older, and I think that is happening. I think more and more of them are kind of evolving into their own sort of style and setting themselves apart and presenting themselves in a way that they feel more comfortable. Because I remember when my kids started going to a local competition, and every kid was wearing a blonde ringlet wig, regardless. It was like that Alfred Hitchcock movie, all those wee blonde kids. And I remember thinking, oh, mother of God, what is this, And I do remember before I was thinking, this is a bit, it was a bit odd. So,
that is a good point, though, and I will agree with you. I think that it's definitely evolving to a point where people are individualising. I'm not talking choreography now because I think that's too generic at the moment.
Yep.
But I think in terms of the look, I think people are really striving to find something different. So that's great. Yeah. So what about the Irish dance world as a whole then?
I just think there's not enough child protection. I just think in social media in particular, I abhor these void boards, and I think I've never been on one. And I remember when my Katie and Anna were dancing, people would approach me to say, have you read what's been put on about your child? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I think the dance teacher would in turn got in touch with these people that run them or whatever the heck they do. But I can't believe in this day and age these forums are allowed to exist. And I can't believe that any adult who's in charge of it would allow it as a means of degrading a child or an adult, defaming people. I just think that from a legal point of view, I'm staggered that they're still allowed to exist.
Well, let's talk about that from the legal standpoint then. What do you think that as an organisation we could do about that? Ban them,
end of. Unless people are wanting to put their names to them. If someone cannot attribute a name to
it's the
comment,
anonymity that's really annoying. Yeah,
and then people using really veiled sort of comments to have a slur itself. I, especially when it's a young child. I just think we as a society are taking a stand against children being bullied online, and yet in Irish dancing, these void boards are allowed to exist, and they are facilitating the bullying of children online.
Absolutely, and it's adults that are doing it. It's disgusting.
So that's what, if I was queen for the day, I'd ban them.
I'm not going to ask you for legal advice here, but I know that the discussion. I know we had a discussion at the North American Nationals around the voivoids and stuff like that, and there are a lot of people who are angry about the situation.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that something happens fairly soon. But I will just have to say, and now that I've got a forum that I can speak to people, and hopefully people are listening, that I don't think we should put any power in any of the void boards. We should just not go on them.
No, I've never been on one. I don't even know how to get on one. It's comments that I hear people, carrying back to me, and I say to them, why would you waste your time? It really, I find it quite disturbing that people would advertise the low level at which they operate. I just find it staggering, and when it's a child, I just think it's just unacceptable behaviour.
It's one thing if they're attacking a teacher who's a grown up, but I know from my own experience that I've gone on and I've defended myself because of some comments that were put on about it, and so I wanted to set the record straight. But what I really should have done was just ignore the whole thing. But it's completely different when it's a child.
It's unacceptable, and as an organisation, if you don't take a stand and act against shutting these void boards down, then, effectively, a one-off can happen, right? But as an organisation, to tacitly acknowledge that they exist and do nothing about it could be interpreted as colluding, and I think that a higher moral stand has to be taken.
Yes, and I can accept that, absolutely. And as part of the commission, I'm a member of the commission, I will say that I have a true feeling that we don't know what to do about it. Do you know what I mean? So I think we need to take some we need to get some legal advice around it.
Yes.
And but yeah, it needs to be taken care of.
Yeah,
most definitely.
for sure.
Most definitely. And so it's like a cancer. It's disgusting.
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's if we solve the world in one fell swoop, Rosey. Oh, goodness. Okay, so there's one more section that I'd like to ask, and it's just the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So don't, this is...
Answer them.
Yeah, we'll just go for it, and we'll have a whole snapshot of how Rosey thinks. So what is your favourite food?
Oh, it's Chinese food. Authentic Chinese food.
Oh, mm-hmm. Good. Absolutely.
Seafood in particular, yeah. Mm-hmm.
River dance or order the dance?
Oh, river dance.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I've had quite a few wee pedals passed on. The best piece. Do unto others as you would like to be done to you. Oh, good. It's simple, but so powerful, right? Mm-hmm, absolutely. Is there a book that has changed your life? The Secret. Oh, yes, absolutely. Love it. Secret, yes. Excellent. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no? Oh, no. And finally, any advice that you would give to aspiring young Irish dancers, either in the competitive world or the professional world or whatever, but just advice that you would give anybody in the world now? Just enjoy it. Enjoy the experience and enjoy the friendships that you'll make. And if you want to take it further, then do what you have to do in every aspect of your life. Practice and work hard. Absolutely. I love that. And so could you speak specifically advice about, as being an entrepreneur yourself and a business owner, if there are people who are listening who are actively involved in the Irish dance community and they want to become a business owner, do you have any advice for them? Be original. Yeah. I think that's what's needed. There's so much replication. And I'm not having a pot shot at anybody at all. I just think what would set you apart is doing something that no one's done before. Just come out with an idea, that because there's loads of things that have still to be done, I'm sure, and be always mindful of your market, i.e. the children. Yes, I think that's hugely important for people to remember. And just from an entrepreneurial perspective, we need to solve problems. And so I think if people think along those lines of there are particular issues that people have, then solve that and you will be successful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, my mother used to say two things. If business was easy, everyone would be doing it. Yeah, she's right. And she used to say, yeah, and in fact, business is easy. It's people, their egos and their insecurities that complicate it. Yes. Yeah. Oh, wise words. Very wise words. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Rosey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. I am just flabbergasted at the story of, I had heard some of your story, but not in its entirety. And just when you put it all together in a chronological format like that, it's really powerful. Mm-hmm. Really powerful. Oh, thank you. So, thank you so much. And I hope that you're definitely an inspiration to me. Oh, so I hope. Well, you inspire me, Martin. So it was, it's But if we can all take something from someone, then that's what it's all about. Oh, it is. It really is. And so I thank you so much. You're so beautiful inside and out. Lovely talking to you. Oh, lovely talking to you, Martin. Hopefully face to face sooner than later, right? I know, darling. I know. We'll see each other soon. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Irish Dance Podcast. If you haven't already, please go to iTunes or your favourite podcast app and subscribe to our podcast. That would be great. And if you are on iTunes, if you wouldn't mind please leaving a review, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. Please visit our website at theirishdancepodcast.com. There's also a survey there where you can fill in what you think about the show so far. So look forward to your feedback and have a great day. Bye-bye.